Most of us have heard stories about the 1960s. Peace movements, civil rights marches, rock and roll, and revolution. But what if you asked someone who actually lived through it to look at the world of 2026? For someone who came of age in the 60s, it's more than just nostalgia. It's a deep cultural analysis. The world we live in today isn't disconnected from the 60s. It's almost a direct consequence of it, not always in the way you might think. The 60s were a time of radical change. People were challenging traditional norms. Everything from the Vietnam War to civil rights to the sexual revolution. These were more than just cultural shifts. They were revolutions in thinking, revolutions in how we viewed authority, freedom, and identity. It wasn't just about tearing down old systems. It was about asking hard questions that had never been asked before. Why do we accept what we've been told? Why do we live the way we live? Who gets to say what's right and wrong? And this deep questioning didn't just change the political landscape. It changed the very core of how people thought about their lives, their values, and their relationships with others. It gave rise to movements for racial equality, women's rights, and LGBTQ+ rights. The 60s were about demanding that we recognize the inherent value of every person, no matter their race, gender, or sexuality. That belief in universal equality, once radical, is now foundational to the way we view our society. But here's the thing, many people who grew up in the 60s now look at today's world and feel a deep sense of unease. They fought for progress. They fought for freedom. But the world they helped create often doesn't look the way they imagined it would. They see the values they championed: individualism, equality, freedom, being twisted into something far different, something more fragmented, something less human. People from the 60s, when they look at the current state of things, see both triumph and tragedy. Sure, there's been massive progress in areas like civil rights and gender equality, but there's also a sense of loss. And it's not just because of what we've gained, it's because of what we've lost along the way. There's a disconnect between what they envisioned and what we've ended up with. Take, for example, the issue of technology. It's undeniable that technology has changed the world. The internet, smartphones, social media, these things were completely unimaginable in the 1960s. And while many boomers marvel at the incredible advances we've made, they also see the downside. Today, everything is fast-paced, instant, and disposable. You can connect with anyone, anywhere, at any time. But you can also feel more alone than ever. Social media, which was supposed to bring us closer, often just isolates us further. The constant bombardment of information and the pressure to constantly keep up with trends leave many boomers feeling disoriented. They don't recognize the world that's been created. To them, it's a blur of noise, distractions, and people shouting to be heard. When you ask boomers about social media, they'll often talk about how it's made the world more divisive. They grew up in a time when the act of protesting was something that brought people together in the streets. It was about fighting for a cause, standing side by side with people who believed in the same ideals. But today, protesting has become something more individualistic. Social media activism, they say, often lacks the depth and commitment of the movements of the 60s. It's about hitting like or sharing a post, not organizing in the streets or making real sacrifices. It's easy to say you support something online, but it's harder to take real action. That's not to say they don't see the value in today's activism. They're proud of the progress we've made, especially in terms of LGBTQ+ rights, racial equality, and gender rights. But they also see how the conversation has become more fragmented. Where the 60s was about one common goal, freedom for all, today's society feels splintered, with different groups fighting for their own version of what's fair and just. It's no longer about a single unifying cause. It's about 1,000 smaller causes, each trying to make its voice heard. While this brings attention to a variety of important issues, it also makes it harder to feel like we're making progress as a society. And then there's the economy. For boomers, the economy of the 1960s was a time of growth. The post-World War II boom meant that jobs were plentiful, wages were good, and people could afford a home and raise a family on a single income. But today, that dream seems far out of reach for many young people. The housing market is out of control, student debt is crushing, and the job market is more unstable than ever. Boomers often look at today's generation and see a group of young people struggling to make ends meet, feeling overwhelmed by the expectations placed on them. They see their own youth, when everything felt possible, and wonder where that world went. How did we go from building a better future for everyone to a world where only a few seem to be able to get ahead? There's also the issue of politics. Many boomers were raised in a time when the political landscape was radically different. They saw the world change through the lens of the Vietnam War, Watergate, and the Civil Rights Movement. They fought to make sure that their voices were heard and that the government would work for the people, not against them. But today, many feel like the political system is more broken than ever. The rise of extremism, the influence of money and politics, and the polarization of society have made many boomers nostalgic for the days when politics seemed more civil, more focused on finding common ground. They see a world where politicians care more about their own power than about the needs of the people. It's not that they don't want change. They just don't think that the current system is working. And then there's the issue of identity. In the 60s, there was a massive push to be yourself, to find your true identity outside of societal expectations. It was about rejecting conformity and embracing the individuality of each person. But today, that message feels more complicated. In a world where everyone is encouraged to be unique, there's also a constant pressure to fit into predefined categories. People from the 60s look at this and feel like we've lost something important. The ability to define ourselves on our own terms without feeling like we're constantly being told what we should be. They see a society where personal identity is being shaped not by personal choice, but by external pressures from social media, influencers, and an oversaturation of online personas. So, when people from the 60s look at the world today, they don't see a failure. They see a world that has evolved in ways they couldn't have predicted, for better and for worse. They're proud of the progress that's been made, but they're also concerned about the direction we're heading. They wonder if the world has become too disconnected, too self-absorbed, too fast-moving. They ask themselves if we've lost the sense of unity and purpose that made the 60s such a powerful time of change. And most importantly, they wonder, is this really the future they fought for? The truth is, the world today is both a testament to the revolution of the 60s and a reflection of how far we've strayed from those ideals. It's not perfect, but it's ours. And for the people who were there when it all started, that's a hard thing to reconcile. It's a world that's far from what they envisioned, but one they helped create nonetheless.